This is James Page at the FTTH Congress in Warsaw and managed to get from the plenary stage Marco Obiso from the ITU, who's given a fantastic plenary speech with some really interesting slides. I'm glad we've got a couple of minutes to talk.
Sure.
The ITU, a really global view of what's happening in terms of connectivity and fiber distribution, but we're here in the Central Eastern Europe region. What's your take on what's happening here?
So there was also an interesting presentation before mine where they were trying to capture data point on the level of connectivity. And for sure, there is a certain difference between how Europe is organizing itself in terms of uptake on FTTH and generally speaking fiber compared to the rest of the world. So I think my perspective there was trying to convey a message for which sometimes a structured and an organized approach, of course, is more effective than something that is done more ad hoc, which is, of course, the rest of the world. But also to highlight the differences that needs to be taken into account when you have a certain similar approaches that possibly are channeled through regulations, like the Gigabit Infrastructure Act that some of the speakers were talking about, compared to a situation where in some of the regions they really don't have the knowledge and don't have the capabilities and the competencies, And our role as global organization is to try to facilitate as much as possible this kind of alignment and facilitate as much as possible this knowledge sharing. And we always do that, taking into account what is coming from, let's say, some of the countries that we can consider good practices in order to be applied or to be at least taken into consideration by the governments in countries where they lack a little bit behind. So that's what we do generally. Yeah.
So I think it was interesting coming from last year's conference and hearing about some of the differences and the similarities that get shared at this event between the different regions. But one thing that definitely brings people together is the difficulty of getting to those rural areas and some of those last mile places. Your view seemed to be you're agnostic about the technology that actually gets the connectivity to people, but hopefully you see a role for fiber being the sort of backbone to that.
Yeah, correct. So of course, we need to aim for speed and for let's say capacity, for bandwidth, and also for stability, integrity, resiliency of the network. And of course, fiber offer also in an environmentally friendly environment, offer all these features and also these characteristics. Where we're coming from is to kind of convey the message that not because everything has, because in some countries the FTTH at the end of the day means fiber to home, right? So that in some countries you have fiber as a backhaul and you have fiber as a last mile. In some environments, specifically where they're geographically difficult or specifically where they are remote in terms of distance, it might be useful thinking of, as you said, an agnostic approach and thinking of an hybrid situation where the backhaul can be ensured through a fiber, but then the last mile can be done through different, different other means. And that is what we are seeing also from the operators in integrating more and more fiber with 4G and 5G, because then, the let's say the bandwidth, the traffic can be channeled to a different mean, and that's something that we are seeing relatively often in some of the, let's say, operational context that might be considered difficult for the whole fiber, let's say, from A to Z deployment.
Great. Okay, so you finished up talking a little bit about the work that the ITU has been doing in Ukraine.
Yeah.
There might be a limit on how much you can say, but maybe quickly you could give us sort of an overview of what you've been managing to do there.
No. And I can speak openly about that because, again, ITU comes from the perspective of supporting countries in assisting and when it's necessary, like in the case of Ukraine, re-establishing the communication, re-establishing the telecommunication infrastructure. We are not really interested in understanding the reasoning, but we are called to support because the member states are asking us to support. So there was one of our, let's say, decision-making body, which is called Council. There was a decision, there was a resolution, like the United Nations resolution, that was mandated at you to, let's say, have a look into the situation and try to support the reconstruction. So we have been partnering with the European Commission, with other governments, and with the industry, with the private sector to basically go there and understanding what is the overall situation from the telecom infrastructure perspective. So we have been producing a series of reports together with other experts in capturing exactly what is the level of the let's say the damage in a sense, in terms of communication. And then the next step was to again kind of mobilize a little bit the international community from the financing perspective, but also from the technical assistance perspective. So we have put in place a certain amount of programs on capacity development. I mean, on let's say specific technical training, like the 5G security, let's say the approach on how channeling traffic into the infrastructure that is present, how to optimize let's say the appliances, the premises, and the equipment that is there, and together with kind of instigate a little bit interest from the international community to support. And then what I was saying during my little intervention was that we managed to mobilize more than $700 million to be used there. In addition, of course, to let's say the kind of in-kind support and financial support that each of the organizations are doing. So I think that was a very good example on how we could, independently of, I mean, the root cause, but how we could actually be a little bit more concrete in supporting a country that is in need.
Great. It's great work. So thank you for outlining some of that. And it was a great speech this morning. So we appreciate you giving us that little overview. Marco, it's been lovely to talk to you.
Same here. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right.